So today we're talking about Kierkegaard's Diary of the Seducer. You guys sound like you both have some
From
thoughts.
either or?
From either or, yeah.
To be honest, I only read about 50 pages of it, and then I read the summary for the rest of it, so I do know what happens. I didn't dislike it either. I was enjoying it. It felt to me like a lot like Lolita, which I also haven't read, but I've read some of. And it also felt like the book The Game, if you guys have ever heard of that. It's the one about pickup artists.
I know it, but I've never read it.
Oh, I've read The Game.
Yeah, it's a classic.
By the philosopher Neil, what's his name?
Neil Strauss.
Neil Strauss.
Oh, sorry. He goes by Style in The Game.
Okay. I like Mystery better of all the
Mystery
pickup artists I know.
Mystery. But it's funny because they would introduce themselves at bars and stuff to people as Style and Mystery. I don't know, that just would be an instant deal breaker for me.
I'm date rapist.
Yeah, I was enjoying it. I thought the prose was really nice. It didn't feel that much like a philosophy text at all. I think it kind of needs to be read in context with the rest of either or at least the first section either.
Yeah.
I read a basic analysis of that, or a summary of what he was trying to do, which was describe two different modes of living, the aesthetic way and the ethical way. So either there's a series of essays and letters and aphorisms in this novella, Diary of a Seducer, which talk in different ways about the aesthetic way of living, which is it seemed synonymous to hedonism. And then Diary of a Seducer is just kind of a picture of what a purely aesthetic person is with kind of amoral sense of ethics. But I felt like it was hard to read it as a work of philosophy, at least the half that I read.
Yeah, I did feel a little bad after I recommended it and started reading it when I remembered, oh, yeah, it's not like I'm recommending this because it's the most insightful thing I've ever read. I'm recommending it because it was raunchy enough that I remember it from either or.
Well, it's not raunchy at all. It's it's the most cringe thing we've read.
I don't know. He stole her honor. I mean, oof. Doesn't get you a little hot and bothered?
I don't know. He's a piece of work, though. I was just cringing the whole time. Just what does he want? It doesn't feel like he wants that at all.
So what made what made you cringe?
Oh God, I don't know. Just everything. His entire way of being. Or maybe the saddest part was where I could see myself in some of it.
That's what I was gonna say.
Really the most cringe.
Yeah, because I feel like that's kind of what cringe is, where it's you're being confronted with something about yourself that you don't like.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Was there anything else, Nathan, that you felt like was missing from the summary, having read it?
Well, I mean, Eddie was right. I mean, it's not really philosophical. I think there's philosophical implications, but the author himself, unless you want to consider it his own personal philosophy of how to live or whatever, how you ought to be, a strategy game, or
so it's not really an ethics or aesthetical work of philosophy. It doesn't ask about the nature of aesthetics or the nature of ethics. It's kind of just here's what I think you should do.
Well, I was thinking he has a sort of ethics for himself, right? But it's
also, when you say he, are you talking about Kierkegaard or are you talking about Johannes?
Uh-huh.
Because
yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna take it for granted that it is not Kierkegaard. It is a Johannes that is actually written these things. I mean, of course, is that really the case?
Well, I was reading.
Who knows?
I was reading afterwards that it very closely mirrors something in Kierkegaard's own life, where he had been engaged to a very young girl, 10 years younger than him, and ended up breaking off the engagement. And I think he kind of struggled with that afterwards because she, he had written in his own personal notes, I guess, that she had kind of pled with him not to, and she ends up getting married to some other guy. And I don't know. I couldn't kind of help but afterwards kind of think that what it was Kierkegaard retelling a story of his youth, but then sort of framing it as this moralistic device where it's him saying this is what not to do, and it's it's him signaling that he's grown as a person, and that really what he's recommending as part of the or section is the ethical life is he's trying to get people to turn to the church and faith But I mean, that could just be like on a psychological level, him kind of retelling his own history in a much more favorable light.
Yeah, I was actually thinking the way you said that he actually conversed with her and she said not to. That actually, I mean, in a certain way, it makes him even more like Johannes.
Yeah.
In that way, in the sense that, in a certain sense, like he wanted everyone to know. It's kind of like Nixon's tapes. It was a part that he's of himself that maybe he's ashamed of, but maybe he actually kind of wants everyone to know about it, you know? So he kind of says it's not me, but it kind of really is. And it also shows again how little regard he has for the actual woman, that he doesn't, respect her enough to not say it.
Well, one kind of interesting thing, and I don't know if you'd agree with this statement, is that Johannes doesn't really grow or change as a character over the course of the story. And I think like what a lot of writers would do is they would have the way to impart this moral that like, the aesthetic life is the wrong choice, is to like show it kind of catching up to Johannes, and, he suffers and then grows and develops as a character. But instead what Kierkegaard does is Johannes just kind of goes on his merry way afterwards, on to the next prize or the next target. And then that in and of itself is sort of the, the moral that we take as readers away from the story, which I kind of appreciate. I feel like people kind of lay it on a bit thick when like, the characters' lavish ways catch up with them at the end. Like, yeah, we've heard that story a million times. Kind of a Macbeth or Scarface kind of thing. I don't know. Did you see the piece as like a warning or like a satire, or like what do you think he was trying to say?
From what I read, the problem with the aesthetic lifestyle is that it ends in despair. And I don't think it's discussed why it does in this piece, but for those of you that made it to the end, like it didn't seem like it ended in despair for him. It ended in despair for Cordelia.
It certainly didn't end in despair for him. I was even going to say maybe it doesn't even really end in despair for Cordelia. Like, I know in the beginning of the book they kind of paint it that Cordelia has been like brought to ruin, but I don't know. I mean, he kind of makes her think that the breakup is her idea, and it seems like she kind of moves on to the next romantic pursuit. I mean, Nathan, did you kind of get the feeling that Cordelia was like in a worse place at the end of the book?
It's hard to see, what she wanted or not. I don't know. It was just like all about him. Mm-hmm. It really was like all he wanted to do was like make her him. Mm-hmm. And so in a way he succeeded. Like, I don't know. It was just a weird sort of like he won in a way, he lost in another. It just seems like a loser way to live.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was more than anything else. It was just like what a pathetic life.
But he did stave off the existential boredom that comes from being an aesthetic man. I don't know. I guess they don't really cover boredom that much in this one, although he does earlier in the crop rotation. I started reading it, but I didn't finish. But it seems like, and from what secondary texts have said, is that like, at least in Kierkegaard's point of view, when you have an aesthetic pursuit, you're constantly fighting against boredom. Whereas if you haven't...
Boredom is the greatest evil, I think was what he said.
Yeah, and so I guess, that Johannes was fighting against boredom. I guess it's not like him and Cordelia never actually slept together, right? Like, it's not like she was a virgin and then he took her virginity.
Well, wasn't that implied at the very end?
Was it? I might have...
Like, for a while. I mean, it seemed to me like... as I had recalled from before... I just remember it being like never anything happening. Like he almost like didn't want anything to happen. Like that always seemed to be how I thought. But then at the end, it's like, he's like, oh, why can't the night last longer? And then, oh, she's dead to me, She might as well be a man now. Did you not remember that? The very end?
I guess I know that their kind of romance took a quick turn, but I guess I sort of missed that was the cause of it. How Cordelia occupies me at the time is soon over, for my soul constantly requires rejuvenation. It is kind of like Lolita in a way, where you're pursuing this very young girl who, like, in the protagonist's point of view, a woman because of her innocence, and then
so it goes from September 24th. The night is still. The clock strikes 11:45. The keeper by the gate blows his benediction out over the countryside. It echoes back from the Blegdamen. He glows inside the gate. He blows again. It echoes even further. Everything sleeps in peace except love. So rise up, you secret powers of love, unite in this breast. The night is silent. A solitary bird breaks the silence with its screech, and the beat of its wings as it skims over the dewy field, down the sloping bank to its rendezvous. A Scipio omen. How full of omens all nature is. I take warning from the flight of the birds, from their cries, from the playful slap of the fish against the water's surface, from their disappearance beneath the depths, from a distant barking of dogs, from a wagon's faraway clatter, from the footfalls that echo from afar. No ghosts do I see in this night hour. I do not see what has been, but what shall be. From the bosom of the lake, from the kiss of the dew, from the mist that spreads o'er the earth and hides its fruitful embrace. Everything is image. I myself am an image about myself. For is it not rather as a myth that I hasten to this meeting? Who I am has nothing to do with it. Everything finite and temporal is forgotten. Only the eternal remains, the power of love, its longing, its bliss. My soul is attuned as a drawn bow, my thoughts ready as arrows in a quiver, not poisoned yet well, able to mingle with blood. How vigorous is my soul, healthy, happy, all present like a god. Her beauty came from nature. I thank you, wonderful nature. Like a mother, you have watched over her. Accept my thanks for your care. She was undefiled. I thank you for people to whom she owed that. Her development was my handiwork. Soon I shall enjoy my reward. How much have I gathered into this one moment, which is now at hand? Death and damnation if I should fail. I don't see my carriage yet. I hear the crack of a whip. It's my coachman, drive for dear life, even if the horses drop dead, but not 1 second before we are there.
So,
and then the next day,
I was going to say that's a sex scene.
I mean, that was his anticipating sex.
Oh,
I mean, the imagery seems pretty clear to me. Yeah, where was that? It's like, I take warning from the flight of the birds, their cries, from the playful slap of the fish against the water's surface, from the disappearance beneath the depths. Yeah, I don't know. I saw a lot. It seems pretty anticipatory to me. But then it's after that. Why? Then the next night. Why can't a night be like that be longer? If Electron could put a foot wrong, why can't the sun be compassionate enough to do the same? Still, now it is over, and I want never to see her again. Once a girl has given away everything, she is weak. She has lost everything. For in the man, innocence is a negative factor, while in the woman, it is their whole worth. Now all resistance is impossible, and only when it is there is it beautiful to love. Once it is gone, love is only weakness and habit. I do not wish to be reminded of my relation to her. She has lost her fragrance, and the time has gone when, for pain over her untrue lover, a girl is transformed into a heliotrope. I will not take leave of her. Nothing disgusts me more than a woman's tears and a woman's prayers, which change everything yet are really no consequence. I have loved her, but from now on she can no longer engage my soul. If I were a god, I would do for her what Neptune did for the nymph, change her into a man. Nevertheless, it would really be worthwhile knowing whether one couldn't poeticize oneself out of a girl, whether one couldn't make her so proud that she imagined it was she who had wearied of the relationship. It could become a quite interesting epilogue, which in its own right may be of psychological interest. And besides that, enrich one with many erotic observations.
Okay.
So, I mean,
all right.
Those two together seem to imply everything to me.
I think this is like one of those cases where the author kind of bleeds into the main character, where like in both Johannes and Kierkegaard's point of view, once a woman has like given up her virginity, she's worthless. And the reason I think Kierkegaard feels that way too is because he wrote this with the intention to convince the reader that, you know, this aesthetic man has successfully, you know, brought ruin onto this innocent girl. I imagine at the time it was probably fairly normal to think that way.
Read.
Yeah, but now kind of looking back on it, it's like I don't know if misogynistic is the right word, but it's almost just kind of comical.
Well, at this, dude, have you ever been on R the Red Pill?
Oh yeah.
I think exactly the same way. This is not an old way of thinking at all. Now it's backed up by science.
Yeah, I know. I just would have felt like the people who were the biggest Lotharios, who really were, getting the most action, would have a little bit more of a libertine kind of point of view where promiscuity is good in women. They would want to encourage it because then, they would reap the reward of it. Whereas if you go around kind of espousing virginity as this, lofty ideal, then it's going to make it that much harder for women to agree to, sleep with you. I don't know, maybe that's advanced seduction techniques that didn't really exist back then.
No, well, I think the whole point was it really didn't have anything to do with her. It's not really erotic. It's all about the buildup, It's all about himself. It's really just like him, like achieving his like ideal.
It seemed like there was a lot of focus on him turning her into an erotic creature. Like he mentioned, I don't know if I can find a good quote, but him basically awakening this eroticism in her. So it wasn't just about what he was able to get, but it's also about what he was able to turn her into.
Well, that was the thing. But it was like he needed to render her in a certain way so that she could be an object of his eroticism. He wasn't just like interested in her body. Like he wanted to make her into a certain thing that he could get off.
I don't know. There was a part where he talks about like he didn't see her for like a couple weeks or something like that, and he like looked in the theater and all these like public places, and then he's like, I'm glad she's not there because I don't want like that a kind of girl that goes to those kind of places or something like that. So he has like an idea.
Yeah.
I was kind of curious what your take was on Kierkegaard's conception of erotic versus Freud's conception of erotic.
I'm not sure I do. I'm not even sure I understand entirely. Like, you talking about eros in general?
Yeah, I feel like erotic and eros can just be used interchangeably.
I feel like erotic specifically is referring to like romance and sex, and the way he uses eros, or maybe I think it's how he uses it, but also Mercuse uses it in a way that's like just general like life affirming, like the life drive.
It could be. I guess I just sort of read it as like a translation thing where like, because I feel like I've seen erotic in enough cases where it's not necessarily sexual or overtly romantic, but rather is sort of this, like you're saying, life affirming.
So isn't erotic partly like, there's like the pure just like pleasure, enjoyment, just enjoying the sensation, right? But then there's the like fetishistic like when I think of eroticism, right, isn't it normally like not just sex, but it's much more about like how it's like all the other like symbolic accompaniments that need to be there for sex in its bare self to be like acceptable, which is partly the kind of goes back to the like say denial of death, like Becker, in the wanting to or needing to avoid the direct confrontation of the woman, needing something like still like wanting sex, wanting that interconnection, but needing to like avoid that direct confrontation, that direct seeing it for like what it is, like needing to say dress it in a certain way or
I guess I maybe could see what we would consider erotic in like a modern usage of the word being a subset of what Freud would consider eros. So maybe they're not the same thing. And also, I guess you can't really discount that a lot of people will use the word erotic to mean a lot more than what Freud might have.
Realizing myself now that like, did Freud come up with the term erotic or come up with it?
I would have assumed the etymology of it would be like relating to eros.
Right. So I'm realizing that like our term of erotic, like when I read Freud and Marcuse talking about erotic, I thought that they were expanding the definition of what erotic was, but I'm realizing that the definition that we commonly use is probably a narrowed what.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking, which is why I was like, maybe just erotic can be translated the same as like that which relates to eros.
Right. Okay, that's
Well,
interesting.
but then eros itself is like it's the form of love between a man and an object, as far as I'm aware. Like, not like a woman is not even a part of eros.
Is a woman not an object when a man is like pursuing her in a romantic sense? I mean, isn't our sexual pursuit just transference?
I mean, I agree that, psychologically, it probably works that way.
I just searched it on Google.
Yeah, I was doing that too.
The Greek eros, obviously, but in Greek it means sexual love specifically.
It means sexual love?
Yeah.
Well, it's like desirous love.
And I guess I would maybe make the same case about Freud, which is that he would see sexuality as much more than just like the process of sexual intercourse or even things that lead up to it. He would probably argue that it's our sexuality or our eroticism that drives us, even in like our daily lives that are not overtly sexual, which I think is what his big revelation was, is that like people like Kierkegaard would use erotic to mean, sexual or romantic love the way that we would colloquially, but it was Freud that said, well, underneath it all is this eroticism that isn't solely about romance or sex.
Right.
So maybe Kierkegaard's use of erotic is a little bit more similar to how we would use it today.
Yeah, I honestly haven't really read enough Kierkegaard to know exactly how he uses it.
Do they use the word erotic a lot in this passage? Because the other thing to think about is that this is like a 4 layers down of like authors. Because it's like an author, the guy A is his name, is compiling these notes from Johannes, and A's notes are being compiled by like a pseudonym of Kierkegaard named like Hermit something, Mr. Hermit, something like that.
Yeah.
Like which level is supposed to be like Kierkegaard's exact work? Is A like a direct conduit of Kierkegaard or an avatar of Kierkegaard?
And that was kind of my thought earlier, is that and like he's ashamed of it, and that's why he's burying it so far down.
A and not Johannes?
Yeah, so A is not an aesthetic man. A is compiling the stories of an aesthetic man. I think A is an aesthetic man, and one of the stories that A wrote is about Johannes.
No. A is the person in the beginning, I think, who finds Johannes's diary and is saying, like, even I, like, I think he said, like, even I am kind of grotesque. I'm an aesthetic. And this is from me reading GreatSaber.com.
Okay, but so the point is that, I mean, I guess overall, you'd have to make the point that he is trying to distance himself from the aesthetic life, but he certainly must know quite a bit about it if he's able to capture it. And I think based on his biography, he seems to have lived it.
Does anybody know, did you read, Michael, any of the or section? Like, do you know what is the ethical life a solution to the aesthetic life, or is it just a different mode of being?
I think he holds it as superior. I think the point of the book is like you can't have both. You have to choose. And I think his point is that it's better to be, he has this concept of like instead of the Ubermensch, he has the Knight of Faith, I think is what he calls it, which is kind of like the ideal man. And I believe
Knight as in K-N-I-G.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's an ethical man, because in his view, it certainly seems like he represents the aesthetic life as being very superficial and just trying to avoid boredom, whereas the ethical life is more of duty and trying to take on obligations and fulfill them, kind of more of a Kantian.
Isn't Kierkegaard's, I don't know about the Knight of Faith, but like, isn't his big thing a leap of faith? Isn't that like the religious mode of being, which is the one that's held superior to ethical and aesthetic? And the leap of faith is like, I really don't like. I think you take the leap of faith because like there's nothing else to do.
Yeah, I think you're right. There is a third kind of person, the religious man.
That's what I thought was interesting about Ernest Becker talking about Kierkegaard, how he said like to talk about Kierkegaard as a psychologist was like laughable in his time because he was like a theologist first and foremost. But now I think he's mostly regarded as a philosopher.
Yeah, I think you could... Oh, sorry?
Oh, I was just going to say that, I mean, in a certain sense, psychology our modern thinking of psychology is already, the whole thing with psyche was that it's like soul and mind, yeah, I mean, we don't think about that as what it is now. Like it's just kind of this gooey machine, but in our head. But like the theology has always, or at least it used to be, considered like integral to psychology.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like back then a psychologist would be described as somebody like a writer who focuses on the inner machinations of their characters' minds, like what their motivations are. And I was reading something about this guy Stendhal, who is considered he was an author, and a lot of people consider him one of like the earliest psychologists in the sense that he was like a very meticulous writer. I don't know. I haven't read anything by him, but he basically just his characters were, I guess, very developed and realistic, probably in a way that writing was not. And I guess I'm trying to contrast it with more like, I don't know, Plato or like Aristotle or something, where it's not about trying to understand the human under it all. It's trying to use the human as a vehicle to express an ideal, where writers before that might have been idealistic, and then you get into writers that are more psychological, and that's kind of like a revolution in writing, where you have a different kind of narrative. And I think that's what Kierkegaard is doing. We're kind of like Lolita, where you have a book that really captures the mind of the protagonist as opposed to the actions, and has a overt moral point that's delivered through the plot. What do you guys see a relation here with like kind of modern pickup artists? I mean, I guess it's a little easy of a comparison to make, but do you feel like it's pretty similar? Or?
I read something
actually
about the original pickup art, like the original book for pickup artists. I don't know, definitely like his whole thing. I don't know, like just remembering back to reading the game, just like kind of like implanting yourself like in their field of vision, so they're like kind of like aware of you, and like he has like a very specific strategy that he seems to have like done like I don't know, it's like very creepy. I remember like reading the game when I was like, 19 and being like, this is kind of sick, like this is like creepy but like so sick, and now it's like really really cringy, like Nathan said. But I bet I would have read this and thought the same thing.
I mean, did pickup artistry persist? This is not just like a random one-off, right? Like there must have been other kind of I don't know, Don Juan-esque characters throughout literature from the 1800s up until today. This just feels like, it feels so anachronistic to me. Like it feels like pickup artistry is like I don't know, a very modern invention, but I guess it's not. Now I'm trying to think who the first pickup artist was.
I read what was the book? The 48 Laws of Power.
Robert Greene.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. It was really long.
Have you read
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, did you read the 12 Laws of Seduction or whatever?
You know what? I started that one. Yeah, and that's actually what I'm thinking of. And he talks about like most of his, I think all of his books are just like stories of historical figures that are emblematic of whatever he's trying to express, and then he constructs a big like set of laws around it, which have like dubious merit. But
yeah, Mike, how did you? Mike put it a certain way, like it's like Andrew Carnegie meets I forget who.
Oh, Mike, are you a Robert Greene fan as well?
No, this got brought up in an earlier conversation we were having. He made a certain analogy to Robert Greene. I forget. It was Carnegie and.
I was thinking Andrew Carnegie, Dale Carnegie, the How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Dale Carnegie and who else?
I don't know. Machiavelli.
Yeah, was it? I thought that was too close. But yeah. Machiavelli meets Dale Carnegie. Sorry. Finish your thought. Robert Greene is a very interesting guy.
Well, I think he brought up a bunch of different. What would they call? Mostly, I'm forgetting two now. I don't know. He used this very specific word for like this type of person that was just like infatuated with women all the time and like went around. I wish I remember. But he brought up like a ton of historical examples, and some of them, like some of the seductions were like not romantic seduction. It was a lot of like courtier kind of stuff, like Cleopatra, like political stuff like that. But it seems like this is just like kind of the way, like humans have a desire to seduce people, and they find like ways to do it that are sometimes amoral, and that's more or less just what pickup artistry is.
Yeah, like it's very anti-Kantian, where you're using people as a means to an end.
Yeah, I was listening to like a video. Oh, God, I've gotten into this guy Destiny, who's like the left Ben Shapiro, and it's really destroying my life. I was listening to him debate Coach Red Pill, who's just like this idiot. But the guy just like he like openly, he's 56 years old or something, and he like openly dates 18-year-olds and won't date anybody above like 21. And it's just like so creepy, and totally like open about it, and like yeah, like why would I want to date like somebody that's older than 20 or something like that? And it's just like so clearly like he's just using people as objects. I don't know. It really creeped me out.
Do you feel like there's a ethical role of seduction? For example, there's this subreddit I recently got banned from called Married Red Pill. I discovered this, like, I don't know. I think I knew about it, but I like checked it for some reason a couple weeks ago. And
you're in the red pill orbit.
Let me tell you the story. Are you guys both familiar with Married Red Pill?
Oh, very much.
So, I mean, yeah, it's like people who are using seduction techniques on their wives to, like, I guess keep the marriage going. It almost seems like it has a somewhat noble goal. I mean, maybe the methods are still equally dubious, but it's not like you're, doing it for the benefit of one person at the expense of another. And in theory, you're doing it to, I don't know. At least these people think they're doing it for the benefit of both themselves and their wives.
Yeah, I know Sam Harris had a problem with that, but what are like some of the techniques that they use? Like, is it just like an outright lie to their partner?
That I forget. Like, I feel like they wouldn't like neg their wife, but like for example.
No, Mike. It's all about dread. The main mechanism of red pill, and I think especially married red pill, the key word is dread. You have to make sure that your wife or significant other dreads like losing you to someone else. And that way you keep them from stepping out. Gotcha. If you've ever watched Elephant in the Room, Patrice O'Neill essentially sums it up perfectly. It's like, you guys should both just go watch, Elephant in the Room. That, his story is, I can't retell it here because he's like way better at it. But, it's essentially like, you're like a fisherman, and you've got a boat, and like your partner's like the fish that like won't get off your boat.
Okay, I'll check.
And, I don't know. I'd almost just like recommend both of you just skip to that right now.
I've seen
that.
It's
Fisherman.
Very special. It's been a long.
Do you know that one?
Yeah, my roommate used to be huge into Patrice O'Neill. So
I mean, Patrice O'Neill's essentially the most entertaining distillation of the red pill.
He's taking the red pill?
No, I wouldn't say that. You think so?
Oh, totally. I mean, he almost formulated it. Like he was red pill before the red pill.
What would you say underneath it all is the philosophy of the red pill? If you could distill it to like a sentiment.
Women don't want what you want. If you want to have meaningful relationships with women, you have to understand and accept what they are, and then act accordingly.
Really? That's how you describe the red pill?
That sounds pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
I would.
Well, it's the act accordingly. Sorry, what's up?
That doesn't sound insidious enough to me.
Okay, well, here's the thing. I will say that is the most charitable reading of the red pill.
Okay.
The essence at the core that's worthwhile, and again, why you should never spend much time on the red pill. Like once you get the core, or once you get the point, then go away, because the rest of it is male inferiority complex, male, how do you call it? You have the whole group of like, I mean, the whole manosphere, all the like male neuroses, like, God, and then you could break them into all the different like you know, the M Gatau, men going their own way. You've got the
Is that how you say it?
You got the-
Mgatau?
I think that is MGTO or some.
Yeah.
I've heard it said. Mgatau is how I've always.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
at describing it, I think this was my perception from like it got taken down like years ago, right? Or does it still exist?
I don't think men going their own way is still up, but I feel like the red pill is.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sure both of those still exist.
Because Red did a big purge of like a lot of that stuff. Like the black pill got. Black
pill got kicked.
Oh yeah. I was like so.
Men going their own way is quarantine, so you can't view it unless you like click a waiver.
Here's how I would describe the red pill. Society has lied to you about love, or about the nature of sexual relations with women. Everything is biological and anthropological. There's no such thing as real love, and there's no moral obligation for you not to exploit those biological traits to get what you want.
And so then, I guess depending on what you want, it could either be ethical or unethical.
I've never seen like a red pill. I mean, it depends on how you describe ethics, but like it's all based around like lying and deception. I think maybe not lying. Maybe not outright lying, but like some form of deception, like tricks, pick up stuff. I don't know. And then the rest of it is just like a lot of like misogynist speech, like.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think
that's definitely the core of most posts.
I think there's a couple things in there that maybe I would have taken away and not felt bad about. So like I've definitely read through I don't think I've read through the red pill, but like the seduction subreddit way back when I was dating in the day.
Well, Mike, did you ever watch those? Because I had that collection of like pickup artist like seminars.
I must.
Did you
have.
ever watch those?
I must have watched a few.
Yeah, me too.
But I was gonna say the thing. I feel like the ones that are not unethical are things like your frame, like trying to maintain your perspective throughout things that are thrown at you and throughout stressful situations, and really just kind of having a strong, like, I guess you could even say in like a Freudian sense, just having a strong ego and, you know, coming back to that. It's almost kind of stoic. And then also, you know, like I think they call it an abundance mentality, where like, you know, you just try to, if you feel like you'll always have a choice and that losing the person you're in a relationship with is not the end of your love life, then you're not gonna, you know, act with this sort of nervousness or neurotic need, you know. And I think that kind of, it's basically like avoiding being like a helicopter parent. Like if you can detach yourself from your anxiety, or a stalker, if you can detach yourself from your anxiety, it's just better for everybody. You know, you can act like a more complete, competent person.
Yeah, the best reading book I've ever read, or like the least harmful, is this one by that guy Mark Manson, who wrote that kind of annoying book, How to Not Give a Fuck or whatever, The Secret Art of Not Giving a Fuck. He wrote this book called Models, and it's about like it's a pickup kind of book, but framed under like honesty. And his like central thesis is that if you're lying or using any kind of tricks, it like displays like neediness. And like the most unattractive thing is to look needy. So that's like where the abundance mindset comes in, where it's if you feel like even if you miss this opportunity, there will be more opportunities. You'll just look more attractive, and you'll be more likely to like, hit those.
Yeah, and I think that's good. I think that's
I guess
I don't
that's
see
why
anything
it's
bad about
more
that.
amoral than immoral. It's
yeah.
Here's the raw facts of it, and here's the things you can do. Some of them are going to be morally neutral, and some of these things are a little shady.
Well, it seems like it gives you a set of internal and external tools, and then the your goal can, you know, probably be immoral or moral, but like the external tools like negging or like I don't know, you know, lying. I'm trying to think like what other pickup techniques there are that really are not about working on yourself, but sort of like Kino, like you know, the physical touching escalation following that. You know, those are maybe things that are unethical. And maybe the line can kind of be drawn at, ones that are internal versus external.
Well, I think the.
Oh, go ahead, Nathan.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think the fundamental thing is not like whether you're touching or not, but when it becomes like a technique, when it's like, okay, I'm going to, press the A, B, it's like a combination in like a video game or something.
Yeah.
When it becomes like, how do I, like, what's the sequence? Like, okay, I have my like memorized spiel. And then from there, I'm going to go to, touching the back. Okay. And then from like, as soon as like, when you're in that space of like how you're thinking about a human interaction, I just feel like you've already lost. Like there's nothing you can get out of it, or the other person can get out of you.
Maybe this is like a very hard position to defend, but I feel like from a utilitarian point of view, there's no difference between being a seduction robot versus like being an authentic person if you both like end a date with a kiss or like, touch an arm when you like, are in a room together. It's like the same action can result from two very different mental states. And because of that, I think that the mental state doesn't matter as much. Like it might make you immoral, but I think it makes you kind of immoral in a vacuum in which you're this like immoral character you have doesn't have any, effects which can be distinctly traced to your defective character.
I guess from like a utilitarian perspective, there's no difference. From like if you think that lying to somebody is wrong or deceiving somebody is wrong, if you go on a date saying like let's say you go on a date and you're acting just like yourself and you touch somebody's arm and like it's just like natural and what's in the moment, like that's what the girl believes is happening. If you go on a date and you've planned to do that all ahead of time, but you're pretending that it's just something that you do naturally, then you are lying to somebody at time, basically.
Yeah,
like,
that's
they only enjoy being touched and enjoy like the banter you have is because they think it's like a spontaneous thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe women might think that you're exclusive when you're not, and even though you haven't had that conversation, you're not explicitly lying.
That's true.
They're being misled.
You do that as a robot or as just a natural.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but I think expressing or making it known how authentic you are is a technique. Like once you start to try to point out or like convey that you're not following a script, that you are being a genuine person and you're doing that intentionally, you stop being authentic about it. And maybe that's a little too abstract, but
it's funny that you bring that up because you guys were just talking about Dale Carnegie, and I was listening to some podcast and recommending it, and I was thinking about reading it again, and I'm just like, I want to read this because I want to be like a nicer, like kinder person and want people to like me more, but I'm like reading like a manual on like how to do like so if I can like a reaction I had that where I was like aggressive and like kind of a jerk, how I could have changed that. But me changing that would just be like me following this manual to get people to like me. So I think it's like I still think it's a good thing to do to like act nice to people, but it still is in a sense acting.
Eddie, you have to realize that people love hearing their names said. And so, Eddie, it's just something that you should be doing. I mean, don't think of it as following a script.
Well, right. So I was listening to Johan Hari, who's the guy that talked about how like antidepressant. This has nothing to do with it, but he was talking to Ezra Klein, and like every time Ezra Klein said something, like Johan Hari would completely pivot off the point, but he'd be like, "Oh, that's a brilliant, yeah, that's really smart that you just said that." Like, and I picked up like, "Oh, this guy's just like bullshitting." Like every time this guy, like naturally how he interacts with people, he sounded very charismatic because like every time Ezra said something, he would like really like make Ezra seem very intelligent and then say his whole completely unrelated thing.
Did Ezra pick up on it?
I don't think so. I don't, or maybe he did and doesn't care because it's just like he's used to talking to people
narcissists
who do interviews. Yeah. But like I had listened to that before and never realized it, and I'm like, oh, this is just like this is why this guy is so charismatic. He does have like kind of a playbook, like it's natural.
Yeah, I mean, well, we have playbooks for a lot of other things. It makes sense that we would have playbooks for what being charismatic looks like. I don't know. I think maybe we could be a little bit misguided when we think that authenticity and charisma are somehow related.
I mean, what is authenticity anyway, right? Like Don't we all just like?
Oh yeah, authenticity's totally overrated. There's really no authentic you.
Yeah, it's a label. It's a label that people use to frame things a certain way, because you can't not be authentic. Like, you're doing whatever you want to be doing.
The only authenticity is the resting bitch face.
The only authenticity is people who fail to replace the pleasure principle with the reality principle and live their lives in unbridled pursuit of their own id. Damn, those people are authentic.
What's an example? Can you think of an example of that kind of person? Like James.
Nathan, you don't know this guy, but he's like an investment broker who got divorced from his very Christian wife and is now like on a dating bender. Yeah, I don't know.
Why didn't he just stay married and go on a dating bender?
Well, that's
the truly hedonist way.
It's not very Christian.
Have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah. Do you guys feel like seduction is different in men versus women? Like, do you think that women participate in intentional seduction? Like, I mean, if we were to look at Hollywood films or TV or literature or any other sort of media, like, it seems like women kind of have their own flavor of seduction. And this might be a hot take, but I feel like when it's obvious that men are doing it, it's really bad. And when it's obvious that women are doing it, it's kind of like certainly not seen as a bad thing. I don't know. Maybe it's seen as like a necessary evil or something. Is that too vague? I can give you a better example. There's a subreddit called Female Dating Strategy, which is basically the
female red pill.
Exactly. It's kind of like the female red pill. And, they'll like, this guy was an 8, this guy was a 7, a lot of stuff like that.
I love when we all just become numbers.
Yeah.
1 to 10.
Yeah.
M, F, maybe a little ethnic flag thrown on there, or ethnic flair.
Imagining it like a distillation of all the stuff that's in like 17 magazine and like stuff.
Yeah, that's a better example of female seduction, I think. I think Female Dating Strategy is just copy paste red pill, but like what female seduction looks more like is like I don't know, Facebook stalking and then accidentally running into a person that they have a crush on and kind of turning it into like a rom-com. Like, if you think about how creepy the behavior is in some of these rom-coms, but how normalized it is, it's kind of like that.
Well, it's funny. I remember rewatching Phantom of the Opera not long ago. I guess it's been at least a year now, but we were watching Phantom of the Opera, the Andrew Lloyd Webber version, and with a few women, and it was just like, and they're just like kind of going back over like, wow, we used to really, like, as young girls, like, we really were into this, but it's, in hindsight, it's like, well, what's going on here?
What does he do? He kidnaps her?
In the end, yeah. But I mean, he's essentially grooming her,
Okay.
From a very young age.
Yep.
Sorry, Eddie, you were trying to get in?
I don't know. What do you guys think of the black pill?
I don't know the black pill. What's the black pill?
Black pill is like the same. It has like the same thesis as the red pill, which is that like everything everything that society has taught us about romance is a complete lie. But instead of like exploiting biology, it's like you're ugly and you'll never be with anybody because women only sleep with the top 10% of men, and it's just like it's like the incel version of red pill. I thought black pill extended like further. I thought it wasn't just romantic. I thought black pill was like a part of like dark enlightenment, like nothing. You're essentially, it's like the Matrix, almost like you're a slave. Kind of abandon all hope. Most focus on sex. I mean, the red pill and the black pill are both metaphors. It's like there's the world that's portrayed to you in the media and like pop culture, and then take this red pill or this black pill. Here's how it really is. Like it's a complete lie. Here's the framework, and you can exploit that. Or if you're in the black pill, lie down and die.
Here's how Wikipedia describes it too. Red-pilled incels believe they have the opportunity to fight back against the system which disadvantages them, which they do by trying to make themselves more attractive to women. Conversely, black-pilled incels are those who believe they can do nothing to change their situation. So it doesn't really sound like there's a fundamental ideological difference. It's just a personality thing. Like they just don't have the I don't know, the wherewithal, or they can't give it a go. They're pessimists.
And then people in the black pill try to convince pretty much everybody else that, like, if I posted a picture of myself to the black pill or to the incel subreddits, they'd say like, you're too ugly, your eyebrows are too thick, you'll never find.
Okay.
Isn't it all about your chin? You got a big head and a small feminine chin.
I was getting these ads on YouTube for this like toy that you put in your mouth that like makes your jaw muscles stronger, to build up your chin. And I'm just like, this is like so sad. I don't know.
The black pill was banned. Sorry.
Yeah, I thought so.
Okay.
Yeah, the black pill is just a liability. That's like, but I'm sure there's other forums. I'm sure that exists somewhere else, because like
they just scatter.
Everyone wants to.
That's like this. It was the San Bernardino shooter. What was that guy?
I thought it was Santa Barbara. Wasn't it?
Santa Barbara, I think. Yeah. Yeah, it was that guy Elliot Rogers.
Rogers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I feel like
well, everyone knows his name.
Yeah, he's achieved immortality.
Hell yeah, dude. Who needs to procreate? You've got your own little incel immortality project.
Yeah, speaking of cheat codes.
Yeah, just go kill a bunch of people. Sorry, what was I gonna say? Like my mom had me read this book that's been popular recently called Breath. I'm not sure if you guys heard this.
How do you like that?
Well, it was great until he starts bringing in all this like skull, sort of like, you breathe. The more you breathe, it'll change your skull, sort of shit. It's like, what the fuck? Like, how the hell? Like, I get that breathing's good, but like, how the hell did he end up? Like, apparently there's something now where it's popular, like in the incel circles, with like, you use your tongue. There's some doctor who's like promoting like forcing your tongue really hard against the roof of your mouth. I guess in some way to like, and then counteracting that with like clenching your jaw to like build up your jaw muscles. And like, he's like, oh yes, and this will like spread open your skull somehow and like unleash the stem cells to like remake your skull. And I was just like, wait, I thought we were talking about breath here. Like, how the hell did we get into like male self-loathing and like fear of having a weak ass skull?
Yeah, that's a bummer. I was thinking about reading that. Kind of like, it seems like he drifts into pseudoscience.
Oh, hard. He takes a hard left or right into pseudoscience. It's so sad because there's some legit stuff in there, but in terms of like, especially like making sure you breathe through your nose, not your mouth, and a lot of like the health effects that people have for being like mouth breathers, especially like with allergies and high blood pressure, I guess, because when you breathe through your nose, I guess you exert or you excrete a certain amount of like nitrous oxide in your sinus tissues.
Oh, interesting.
Plus, I guess it helps like regulate your humidity, your like lung humidity. But then he starts getting into the skulls and like, what the hell, Like, I was really surprised this book was making the rounds. So like, especially like the middle-aged woman rounds. And I was just like, what the hell? How is no one else picking up on this skull shit?
That's the part when you like write 300 pages about one thing and you're like just a journalist and you're not a scientist or whatever. You're just like gonna pick up whatever you can and then kind of put it all together into one compendium.
How dare you talk about Malcolm Gladwell like that?
Wait, it wasn't Malcolm Gladwell. There's no way that was Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Malcolm Gladwell's annoying. Malcolm Gladwell, his biggest thing is like, he has like a theory that he clearly is looking for stories to confirm, and then he'll like shoehorn whatever he can and just tell the same story over and over again. see, this is exactly what I'm saying. And it'll just be like so like clearly like stuffed into a neat narrative.
Yeah, Malcolm Gladwell's much better at actually making a narrative out of it.
Right.
But yeah, no, this was just kind of a random jaunt through different things, where it's very like self-contradictory. I would be interested to hear your thoughts on it. I mean, there is some useful information in there for sure. It is kind of hard picking out from the rest of the turd.
Right.
Yeah, breathing's just really, really interesting. I've been really interested in the Postural Restoration Institute, PRI. They've got lots of things to do with how we breathe, and because our body's sort of asymmetrical, and I guess breathing has a lot of effect on even our legs and the hip flexor. I think our left internal abductor, muscles on our legs have some, and how we stand and lean on one leg has some sort of relationship with the diaphragm and the whole rest of the body. The lungs have really been overlooked for a long time.
Looking this up now. This is it.
But yeah, I just kind of going back to the red pill or whatever, because I know we're kind of venturing off, or just in just seduction in general, and the whole I mean, in a certain sense, I guess you have to be honest, with yourself. I think a lot of times one thing that you notice with the red pill is, I mean, there is kind of a sort of ethic. There's a sort of here's how you should go through a relationship, or, the whole spinning plates. You should have you should be dating 7 women at a time. And out of that pool, maybe you pick one that
right.
you wife up or whatever. But essentially, even then, you should always, be scouting for new talent, it's almost like you should treat your relationships like a business, you're a business, and you gotta ensure your business keeps going. So you can't let one person leaving your firm wreck your business. So you gotta always be ready for a woman to leave you. And in a certain sense, it seems impossible to really develop a long-term relationship, a meaningful, long-term relationship with that sort of mindset.
Yeah, that seemed like the central, or the moral of the game was that history was just this depressed mess who had no, close personal relationships.
Yeah, I mean, I got to be honest. I felt like Ernst Becker really in Denial of Death really hit it perfectly. That it really has nothing. The fundamental issue with pickup artistry is it really doesn't have anything to do with women to begin with. Just like this story, it really wasn't about the woman at all. It was about the man and wanting to, and it was his project for how to live his life. But he just needed grist for the mill, of that life. And I think that's kind of the same with pickup artists is, I know the most famous one in recent times, Roosh, what's his name? Roosh V.
Yeah.
Now he's an Orthodox, I think, Christian or something.
Yep. That was when I first,
it's
when I looked up essays on Seducer's Diary, the first thing that came up was one on Roosh V, who I didn't I didn't actually know who he was, but that he has some interesting positions, that's for sure.
I'm looking him up now. He converted from Armenian Apostolic Church after ingesting magic mushroom.
Yeah, he's a red pill blogger, but I think he made some argument that rape should be legal because it would make women more likely to avoid it or something. Is that right, Nathan?
I gotta be honest, dude. I've never read anything. I remember it was 2016. Whenever I read the red pill for a short period of time, I think in 2016. Yeah. And then that was good. I got it. I got what they were about, and so I didn't need any more. It is an incredibly shitty place, literal just spiritual garbage to like be there, like on the red pill all the time. Like, I swear there was like a week there where I was like on the red pill, and it was just like, yeah, these people like are fucking losers, you know? Like, no, it's seriously, it's just all these like stories of like me, 7, you know, went out on a, oh yeah, you know, and it's just like, it's essentially like the Seducer's Diary. You know, again, they don't enjoy it themselves, but they want to. They like the idea of like doing it to like show the other guys.
Yeah,
like look at me living life.
That's
like,
actually
I'm doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah,
that's actually what got me banned. I found that, like I said, I found that red pill subreddit, and I was like just reading through some of the posts. I think I was bored one afternoon, and there's this guy who posts a lot in it. I forget his name, but he's like, he has a Patreon now. This is like what he does for a living. And like a lot of his posts are about like, I mean, they're basically like, I don't know, somewhere between a locker room pep talk and like being dropped on the beaches of Normandy pep talk to men, where it's like, it's, I don't know. It's just like,
do you remember which guy this was?
It had something to do with like
a few characters,
stone or rock. It had something to do with like a rock in his name. Let me find it.
I don't remember that. Maybe he's a new guy. I just remember there was like some Russian dude who was like the bondage dude. There was some guy, I forget. He was like all about like, you know, taking like herbal supplements to make your dick bigger. There was one guy who was like the spiritual guy. There was like, yeah, I forget. But yeah, there was a whole bunch of like different, it was just like the fact that these guys are on this subreddit every day is just like, how awesome can your life be if this is the best place for you to spend your time?
Yeah, and I think you're right.
We're not out living life. We're on the red pill. Oh, it's just like, how could anyone how could any male just like be on here and think that these are like cool guys?
Yeah, man. I mean, not getting laid's a hell of a drug. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. But I basically, I mean, he was like, he popped into another thread, and like it was another thread that was the exact same thing, where the guy is like, you know, talking about, I don't know, how he basically like, I feel so bad for these guys' wives, but how he like, you know, effectively like manipulates his wife and everything like that, and is written in this very like, you know, like you're saying, showy kind of way. I don't know.
Well, there's like a template, right? I mean, because normally it's like you're supposed to have all your stories like in a certain template with like lesson learned or like key point, you know?
Okay.
But again, it's all just like it just reduces human beings to like a number between 1 and 10.
Yeah.
And then like, who is more abusive to who, you know? And it just, nothing's healthy about it, you know? There's nothing life affirming in any of it.
Yep.
There's no enjoyment of people, I think even sex, you know? It's just like you have sex just so you can post about it on Reddit.
Yeah.
Which is just so sad.
Yeah.
And we always talk about their count. Like, what's your count? And they're not up like the top of their head. How many women they slept with.
Yeah.
You know what I noticed though? There's not really like a red pill for men who pick up other men. Like, is it? I feel like I've only seen heterosexual red pill. Am I mistaken?
It's pretty so much easier to have sex.
What do you say?
I think it must be so much easier to just get laid. You don't need like all these tricks because you're just kind of horny all the time.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect there to be the need for it's different, right? Like, because again, it there's not the like same mystique because you're also a man, you know?
Right.
Like
True,
between men and women, there's this idea that like women are a different thing.
Okay, have you heard of purple pill?
Oh yeah.
And I guess that's like recovering red pill?
Or the compromise between.
Okay.
It's like lukewarm red pill, I guess.
Okay.
It's people who want to be red pilled but also don't, you know? I don't know. I kind of forget. Again, I haven't read these in years.
I've never heard of purple pill. Isn't blue pill? Blue pill is the feminist.
The beta cucks.
Yeah.
To put it in red pill terminology, I guess.
I'm on red pill women.
Hmm?
I'm on red pill women right now. This is great.
Is it literally just red pill for women?
Yeah. We got like a nice banner and everything. I'm really glad that the Kierkegaard conversation turned into like talking about intelligent Kierkegaard. I feel like that's where it should be. It should have brought us. So